look, I'm the budget chairman, and my perspective may be a little different than some of my colleagues. I want to talk about the overselling of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Hopefully we can all agree that was false advertisement and misleading the American people with respect to the outcomes. Secondly, the underscoring of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act and the impact on our nation's financial health, which is in serious decline, and what our children will inherit in terms of the amassing debt, or what I call deferred tax, on our children as a result of passing the IRA under certain cost assumptions or budget assumptions. Today, the debt for this great country is 25% larger than the entire economy of the United States, the largest economy in the world. 2 years under this administration and my Democrat colleagues, $10 trillion in spending, $6 trillion of which was deficit spending, adding to the national debt in a volume we have never experienced in the history of this country. CBO projects we'll add $20 trillion more based on current policy. They say we'll double the annual deficit. They say we'll triple the interest payments. In 10 years, we'll be paying $1.5 trillion. But in February, and this was the last time they revised their numbers was May of 22, but in February of this year, they said we have to upwardly revise the projections of the cumulative deficit based on the policies of this administration and the cost of those policies, along with the interest cost, which I would submit are soaring because of the spending-induced inflation. They had to revise in just several months the cumulative deficit by $3 trillion based on spending and interest cost. $3 trillion. This bill that was advertised as a deficit reducer, not a deficit increase, included $400 billion of climate-related policies, mainly tax-related, $100 billion in expansion of government subsidies for health care. I would submit to you that the pay-fors that CBO scored to give this a deficit reduction number of $155 billion, some of them were total gimmicks. Others you could debate whether they were a gimmick, like the IRS and $80 billion and $87 billion in IRS agents. But there was a rebate rule that never went into effect from the previous administration that would have cost $122 billion, according to CBO, never implemented. That was just a cost on a piece of paper if you implement. That was used to supposedly offset the cost of IRA. So I don't even believe it was cost neutral. Certainly, I don't believe it was going to reduce the deficit even before this conversation. Now we're talking about this underscore of tax credits for green industry, batteries, solar, electric vehicles. We could be talking, Dr. Jen, about hundreds of billions of dollars more on the debt and this unsustainable trajectory and the potential of a debt crisis for this country and the enormous recklessness and the burden we're putting on our children. Dr. Jen, is it hundreds of billions? Is what I'm saying jiving with your economic analysis?
Congressman, yes, it is. I mean, I think this will be hundreds of billions of dollars added to the national debt. There were a lot of gimmicks that were in there with CBO's estimates. Some of them weren't out for a 10-year budget window. that they were looking at, what those cost estimates were going to be. I remember, if we had done something like that in the Trump administration, we would have heard that a lot in the media, and we haven't heard any of that going on within this so-called Inflation Reduction Act now.
Thank you, and I yield back.